Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:06. It's O'Connor and Company. We're already off and running here. We had Kurt Schlichter for the first half hour of the program talk about his brand new book, American Apocalypse. Check it out. It's out today. Coming up in 30 minutes, Dan Schneider of Media Research Center on the final death throes of NPR. They've got that, the death rattle, those final couple of breaths where you get that's what we're hearing, right? If you tune over to NPR, don't do that, though. But if you did, you'd hear the death rattle right now. Coming up at 7:05, Paul Klonowski. We're going to talk about the Montgomery County gas leaf blower ban in a moment. 8:05 brings us KT McFarland. 8:35, Representative Brandon Gill of Texas on the rescission package as it now makes its way back over to the other side of the building there in the House to accept the Senate's version with amendments. Or maybe we'll have to do it all over again. We'll see. All right, it's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock on a Thursday. You and Patrice swapping chairs here. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for helping me out today. Do you use, forgive me for asking this question, it's sort of personal, but do you do you use gardeners at your house? I would think not. With a husband and 3 teenage boys, you've got a crew there.
We have never used anyone to mow our lawn, and
Same.
It's hilarious because we are like the only people. My husband also splits his own wood, and people in the neighborhood are like, is she okay? Is the wife okay? He's out there with an axe. Are you allowed to have an axe? Are axes legal?
We need axe control.
Yeah, no, we do not. We mow our own lawn.
Down at Mount Vernon, they have the people like the people who relive history, and they dress in like colonial gear and they do stuff. They have it's always a teenager. It's always like a 15-year-old kid who splits wood down there, right. And it's so fun to watch. And I'll never forget. And my son at the time, I think when he first saw it, he was like 11 years old. He's like, I want to do that. Like,
let me tell you, I really love it when my husband splits wood. Okay, I just pull up a lawn chair and I just watch.
Enough said.
I'm a little warm.
We do our gardening at our house, too. And we do it as a family, by the way. It's a husband and wife co-effort, and it's fun to do, by the way. Right. And you burn some good calories, and there's something very satisfying about it. By the way, that said, I also let my yard go often because of that, but it is what it is. In Montgomery County, the vast majority of homeowners, I'm guessing, use a lawn service to take care of such things. They have busy lives, after all, and their children are too busy studying woke ideology in the public schools forget that, private schools. But Montgomery County recently has put a ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. Now, they did this under the guise of climate change, of course.
Right.
But it's really about the noise. And by the way, full disclosure, I actually own a battery-powered leaf blower. These things do exist, all right?
Yes.
They're not cheap.
They don't last long.
They're better than you'd think, but still, if I had to do this professionally and had to work like 9 hours in the day blowing leaves, it would be a problem. Right. It would definitely be a problem. And so they do exist, but here's the funny thing: they make noise. They're not. It's not like it's silent all of a sudden. Right. You're still going to have to hear the sound of that giant fan blowing leaves across the yard. It doesn't quite sound like that, but it's not great. Anyway, now that the ban is officially in effect as of July 1st, Montgomery County residents are really up in arms because suddenly, their yards don't look quite as nice as they did. And in some cases, their gardeners are upping their fees because of the cost involved.
Because they have to rake it now.
Or they have to buy a whole brand new fleet of battery-powered things, or they have to plug into the homeowner's outlet, right, with a giant extension cord. That's the other option. Instead of battery-powered, you can just plug the leaf blower in. Either way, it's a nightmare, and it's taking longer, and it's costing more money, which is what we predicted from the start. So they just had a hearing about maybe, this hearing was just this week about re-examining this bill now that it's officially been put in place. Because this is typical Montgomery County elitist liberal thought. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Let's do that. I'm going to feel so good about myself. 2 weeks into the process, oh, what have we done? Yeah. Right? You never think about the second stage of your decision.
Right. And just so you know, I love that these are the people who love, people who come to this country looking for a better life, and then promptly put them out of work.
Right.
Yeah.
And make it untenable for them to have a profession.
Right.
Here's Paul Kolonowski of Collins Landscaping, and he testified at this hearing this week about the impact that these blowers now have.
I graduated from the University of Maryland studying horticulture and landscape architecture. As someone who loves nature and all that it offers, I chose a career in which I could help both beautify and preserve it. I believe in and practice raking, composting, and the like, but I also know that one shoe does not fit all. We are here today to ask for a compromise, as the battery technology is simply not there for landscape contractors to do our work in the fall. These blowers only run for about 40 minutes, powered by 2 or 3 heavy batteries, and then need to be recharged over and over again. We are asking for just 3 months of the year, while using battery equipment for the other 9.
That's all they're asking. They're just saying, lift this for 3 months when we've got the real problem with the leaves coming down. Let us use gas-powered leaves to do our job and to get it done. He also talked about the cost involved. And by the way, Montgomery County says, well, we've put together a rebate program if you have to buy new equipment. But it's not. It's like a buyback program for your guns, right? It's
they love this kind of stuff. They love this. Here's a tax break for you.
That's right. But it doesn't cover the expenses. Because, well, how expensive can it be? Well, if you own a fleet, if you own a lot of companies that are doing this job, this vital jobs that American homeowners clearly don't want to do in Montgomery County, it costs a lot of money. Here's Kolonowski.
Many, having worked for me for more than 20 years, are deeply concerned about the impact this will have on their livelihoods. Due to the significant costs associated with the battery blowers and the need to convey many of these costs onto our customers, we will undoubtedly continue to lose jobs. This impacts both our team, along with costing our Montgomery County customers considerably more money to do the same work as in previous years. Over the last few weeks, it has been said that the purpose of Councilmember Albernose's bill is to accommodate those companies dragging their feet for firms that have failed to prepare for the ban. This is simply not true. In full transparency, I have already spent over $62,000 on blowers, batteries, chargers, simply to be compliant with the law. We will need 4 times this amount of equipment, including hundreds of batteries for the fall. If this bill does not pass, we will also...
$62,000 already to be compliant, and he's going to have to do 4 times that for the fall to handle this. All right. Now, there's 2 sides to every argument, and there are some residents. Now, again, remember, this was all done under the guise, I believe, of climate change and emissions and all that. No, it's because, it's so noisy. Can't you stop with that racket? That's what exactly this is about. And so here is Montgomery County resident Russell Sturm at the same hearing talking about how he wants this ban to stay in place because of the noise.
I thank the council for the peace and tranquility we've enjoyed in the Brookdale neighborhood since July 1. It's been a revelation. I'm therefore perplexed by the council's hasty consideration of the ill-conceived Bill 1925, which would bail out non-compliant companies and again shift the costs from users of the technology to those who do not use it. I've got 3 primary fundamental flaws that I'd like to point out about the legislation. First, the weekend ban would not, in fact, protect homeowners from invasive noise and pollution. A lot of folks at home during the week, including myself, where my home office is rendered unuseful whenever the machines are rolled out down the block. I measured 90 decibels in my living room and in my home office when the neighbor's landscape service starts up their machines.
Can you imagine? First of all, you hear this guy. Everybody knows this guy. We all know this guy.
Yep.
This guy lives on every block. Yes. But did you catch that? He bought himself a decibel meter and put it in his living room. So when the noise started, he ran so he could run over and check. What are those decibels like? This is like a Van Halen concert. What are we doing?
Right. You're right, though. Everyone knows this neighbor. He's been waiting for this moment. He's been practicing this moment. He has been so excited to have his 3 minutes.
You live in a crowded suburb, literally on the border of one of the nation's largest cities, and you expect to have peace and tranquility. Listen, I love peace and tranquility. Move to a place where you would expect peace and tranquility.
Or get a basement office. If you have a basement, most homes do nowadays.
Or maybe get better windows.
Put your office in the basement. My husband has an office in the basement, and honestly, I could be murdered upstairs, and he would not hear me. Okay, and believe me, I've actually yelled quite a bit trying to get him to come upstairs.
Yeah, well,
for instance, when I had a mouse in my
because-
house.
That's because he's in on it.
Yeah, so
He'll
get a
He'll be a
basement.
person of interest, I promise, Julie, if it ever happens.
Shut up. Get a basement office, or I don't know. Just decide that during these hours I'm not going to work. It's just these people are absurd. They're absurd.
I think it is unreasonable when you live in, Bethesda, right next to, it's a crowded, densely populated area. You're not going to have peace and tranquility. You want peace and tranquility? Move out to a rural area in Frederick. You're going to have other noises, but, listen, at 7:05, we're going to speak with that gardener, the guy who owns the landscaping company, Paul Kalinowski, right now at 6:17.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
For the best selection and pricing on in-stock furniture, visit pvi.com.
And in my home office, when the neighbor's landscape service starts up their machines, this causes me economic harm. I have hearing loss and tinnitus and debilitating anxiety when those things are moving.
All right. Again, we all know this neighbor. We all know this guy. He's got tinnitus now. I have suffered harm. You have harmed me. I have suffered damages.
The anxiety is what kills me.
Yes. I have anxiety. I cannot sleep at night. I also like the use of the term machines. Those dastardly machines. Turn off your machines.
It's such a dystopian reality for this poor guy, right? And also the tinnitus was caused when you went out there and stood 3 inches from the leaf blower guy and were yelling at him, right? There you go.
He's probably a perfectly fine person, but I've known my dad was like this, and my father-in-law is like this.
Oh, you're so nice.
A lot of people are like this, where they're perfectly nice and reasonable, but that one thing becomes their white whale. It becomes their Moby Dick.
Yeah.
It's just like that. This is what drives me crazy. And for this poor guy working from home, it's the leaf blowers. And if he hears it, 10 houses away,
I know, that's the thing.
he gets triggered by it. All right.
Yeah.
So we acknowledge that we all have this neighbor. We all know this guy. Now, Julie, speaking of being triggered, I need to give you a trigger alert because I know for a fact that this is your neighbor. In fact, not only do I know that this is your I'm pretty sure you are surrounded in Alexandria by this woman.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Rosenbaum. I hold a master's degree in environmental science. I wrote my thesis on the environmental impacts of lawns. If the leaf blower ban is causing hardship for landscape contractors, I frankly don't see the problem. Landscape contractors should be banned. What are landscape contractors doing every day in our communities? They are burning fossil fuels and destroying plant biomass. You may have heard of burning fossil fuels and destroying plant biomass, sometimes known by its most salient example, deforestation, as the 2 key drivers of the climate crisis. Landscape contractors are also destroying habitat. You may be familiar with habitat destruction as the major underlying cause of biodiversity collapse.
Let her cook.
What habitat are landscape contractors destroying? Leaves. Leaves are not litter. They are habitat.
So, not only does she want to ban the blowers, she wants to ban the rakes.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you, Jeanette seems like a good time. I mean, honestly.
Yes. What happens when your son brings Jeanette home?
Oh, my God.
Oh, Mom,
I will die.
I met the woman of my dreams. She's
Honestly,
getting a master's in habitat protection.
You know this is a worry of mine. I mean, honestly, hopefully I'm raising my children to know to stay far away from Jeanette's, like this lady.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my gosh.
So there you go. And again, probably a perfectly fine. Well, here's the thing. When your child comes home, when you're paying
Don't say that about
tuition,
Jeanette. It's fine if you're going to say it about the other guy. Not Jeanette. I have a master's. I'm very smart.
Well,
what's wrong with leaves?
The real problem here is when your daughter comes home from college saying, "Hey, I think I'm going to get an advanced degree. I want to get a master's in lawn environmental impact. I'm going to write my thesis on the environmental impact of mowing your lawn."
I mean, honestly, Jeanette, in her ideal sort of movie, someone's lawn would be the bad guy. Like, would kill people, suck people into the yard.
By the way, I'm guessing Jeanette is a frequent guest on NPR's morning show. Thanks to your public
you can just see the people at the Atlantic right now. Lawns. Gosh, I had no idea they were so dangerous. I'm going to write a think piece.
David French is doing his column right now. The conservative case for letting leaves stay on your front yard. Yes. It's 6:23.
Coming up, we're going to talk to Dan Schneider. Keep it here. It is 6:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:36 now on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. Busy Thursday morning. A lot going on in your nation's capital, and we're keeping an eye on it. It's 7:05. We'll follow up on that conversation we just had about the leaf blowers in Montgomery County with the owner of Collins Landscaping. At 8:05, KT McFarland on the scene in Syria and Ukraine. And then at 8:35, Representative Brandon Gill, who's going to be a big voice there in the House of Representatives as the rescission package now makes its way back with a couple of amendments for a final vote. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
And good morning, Julie. Yes, about that rescissions package, as we mentioned earlier, the big prize there, the crown jewel of this rescission package is the defunding of the Corporation of Public Broadcasting. Dan Schneider is the Vice President of Media Research Center. That group has been fighting against NPR and PBS and their violation of federal law because of their political bias for decades now. And Dan, I know you were up late counting the votes. I know because you and I were texting each other late into the evening counting the votes. And first of all, preliminary congratulations, because I think that was the hardest fight. I want to ask you about the House in a second, but tell me who flipped, because last I checked, we had a 50-50 tie. J.D. Vance had to vote to break the tie on that procedural vote, but then you ended up winning 51-48 last night.
Yeah, Larry, and by the way, Larry, yes, you didn't get much sleep last night. That's why you've got your sexy Lou Rawls voice going this morning.
Well, thank you very much.
Mitch McConnell, he voted against the two procedural motions to begin this, but he may have voted for every one of the against every one of the Democrat amendments. I'm not sure about that, but he certainly voted for final passage.
All right. Well, good. Mitch stepped up at the end. All right.
Look, NPR and PBS have treated him so terribly over the years. I think he probably said enough of this. These are simply mouthpieces of the Democrat Party, and taxpayers should not be forced to give congressional earmarks to their opponents and the opponent's mouthpiece. So, justice was served last night.
So now, what were the amendments that were through? In your mind, were any of these amendments that the Senate put forward anything that might block its passage in the House?
No. Well, the only thing that really changed was what's called a manager's amendment. The Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, put a little bit of funding back into PEPFAR, $400 million. And I think that was needed to get some of those senators who are very focused on foreign policy to get on the bill and to support the bill. And I don't think anybody really is complaining that $400 million was put back in out of this $9.4 billion bill. And everybody, every conservative, every Republican I talked to on the Hill, House and Senate, they all agreed. Getting rid of NPR and PBS forced taxpayer subsidies, that was what was so critical and important.
So, Dan, tell me what this looks like in sort of practice. Like, what will happen if this actually passes the House? If we so-called lose funding for these? I mean, will they shut down, or will they sort of sit and wait for that funding to be restored? What will happen? Will there be major reductions? Will they go off the air?
One of the people who really deserves credit for this is Russ Vought, the OMB director, and he was so clever when he was getting beaten up by the Senate Democrats and Susan Collins a couple of weeks ago at the hearing. And by statute, NPR is required to look for diverse sources of information and news to broadcast. And so they go through, they use for-profit companies like the New York Times, The Atlantic, Vox in their programming. Well, why aren't they using Larry O'Connor? Why are they not using Ben Shapiro in their content?
They can certainly afford us.
Yeah, well, you'd be cheaper than the New York Times. So they could save money doing that. Simply actually getting diverse sources of news. Really, nothing's going to change. The Democrats and NPR and PBS, they're the fancy pants lobbyists. They were making all kinds of absurd arguments about how farmers needed NPR to know the weather and all of the emergency alerts. Oh, my God, the emergency alerts, when every broadcaster has to carry the emergency alerts and every cell phone. So, Julie, not much is going to change, except maybe these radio stations will become more efficient, because they'll have to start competing with good stations like WMAL for the first time ever.
That's music to our ears, certainly. And the bottom line here is, Dan, and I'm sure you saw David French, the last true conservative, made the conservative case for government-funded left-wing propaganda by saying that defunding NPR is a pernicious step toward ending the First Amendment. Ultimately, this argument really has to do with my tax dollars. I should not be forced to pay for a political viewpoint that I disagree with, or any political viewpoint for that matter. And that's really what this fundamentally is all about.
Maybe somebody should remind David French that we just ended an administration, the Biden administration, that had 57 separate censorship initiatives across 93 federal agencies. It was the Biden administration that was using all those resources to silence us at almost every agency in our executive branch. And David French is concerned that an undeserved congressional earmark is being taken away, and that these companies are going to have to compete like other companies or more like other companies, even though they still get tons of taxpayer dollars.
He just wanted to use the word pernicious. Dan, is this, just to be clear, this rescission package, does it dismantle the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, or does it merely defund it for the remaining of this fiscal year, and we're going to have to go through this whole fight in the next budget go-around?
Okay, so it eliminates the 2 years of advanced appropriations for 2026 and 2027. It's actually money.
Oh, that's right, because they tried to cram 2 years in under Biden. They wanted to before Trump became president. That's right.
Right. So Congress has not been working on what's called the Labor H appropriations bill. That's the one that always includes funding for CPB, NPR, PBS. I seriously don't think it's going to get put in there, but I do know Brandon Gill is on that topic. He is the one in the House who's making sure it doesn't get put back in during the appropriations process.
Well, there's Dan Schneider effortlessly allowing me to tease forward to 8:35, where we will have the aforementioned Brandon Gill, congressman from Texas, to talk about that very topic. And we will pose the question to him. Meantime, Dan Schneider, get some sleep. You were up late. It's almost done. And then we can, I guess, have the big retirement party for Tim Graham, whose sole life mission has been to do away with NPR. That's been his job at Newsbusters. What's he going to do?
Well, look, there are three presidents who deserve so much credit. President Trump, and then President Brent Bozell, and now his son, President David Bozell. And then sort of the unsung heroes are Tim Graham, Clay Waters, and then also the MRC marketing team, Iris Cat and Evangeline. They've done amazing work on this. Yeah. Really, truly historic work.
The incredible researchers in media. By the way, I mean, the timing of this flood in Texas and your ability at Media Research Center to actually show that NPR did not go to local emergency broadcast programming during the flood. It took them hours to get there. They were actually playing the nationally syndicated Trump-bashing left-wing morning edition the morning of those floods. Just as they're making the argument how necessary they are for emergency broadcasting, you guys were able to prove, no, we just had an emergency and NPR was sitting on their butts.
They were sleeping during the flood, And some of them tried to say, well, gee, did you expect us to actually have to work during a flood? And the answer is the private for-profit radio stations, the talk radio station down there, the country station, the rock station.
That's right.
Yeah, they did jump in. They broke from their regularly scheduled broadcasting to interview first responders, to alert people to go to high ground, while the NPR station, played Morning Edition saying that Trump is a liar and saying that the reconciliation bill is an abomination. And they were fundraising and lobbying in the middle of it all. It was
great to hear all those Democrats go on the record about how essential local radio programming is. Thank you very much for going on the record. Not national public radio, but local radio programming. And that's why I expect all of them to vote in favor of maintaining AM radio bans in all new cars manufactured in America. But something tells me they might change their tune when that bill comes up. Dan, we got to leave it there. Congrats to the whole team at Media Research Center. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys. Thanks a lot.
It's 6:45.
Hey, it's Chris Plant. Find out what the media don't want you to know. Coming up this morning at 9, right here on WMAL.
Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock, Federalist. We love the Federalist.com, overseen there now by Molly Hemingway. A great team of writers over there, including Margot Cleveland, who's obtained a memorandum that appears to be a bit of a smoking gun here with regard to the predisposition of supposedly unbiased judges here in the District of Columbia as they make judgments about the Trump administration. We're told that these judges, like Judge Boasberg and all these judges that always put these injunctions against Trump and trying to stop his actions as president, we're told that they're just unbiased. They're just looking at the law. Hey, they're just, they're not political. Well, apparently, there was a judicial conference in March here in Washington, D.C., and at these working breakfasts and meetings and stuff, usually they talk about, just basic issues regarding, the role of the federal government and what the role these judges play. And it's all very high-minded, intellectual, theoretical stuff, right? But in this memorandum that Margot Cleveland got, there was a side conference, a side conversation at this working breakfast where, and I'm going to quote now, District of Columbia Chief Judge James Boasberg raised his colleagues' concerns that the administration would disregard rulings of federal courts, leading to a constitutional crisis. He raised those issues with Chief Justice Roberts. Chief Roberts expressed hope that would not happen, and in turn, no constitutional crisis would materialize. So basically, they're having this open conversation about rulings and pending rulings and things like that and what President Trump would do. Which, again, normally you would think of that, it's all very theoretical and it's all very, high-minded, just constitutional discussions. But here's the problem. While those conversations were going on, Donald Trump and his administration were active defendants in cases that those judges were hearing. So this conversation basically sort of underscores the notion that these guys are all getting into a room and trying to figure out. Now, not Chief Roberts, by the way. He comes across pretty good here. But it's Boasberg and these other district judges that appear to be, having conversations amongst themselves about all the next steps that are going to be involved as they try to stop Trump.
And yet, Roberts later defended Boasberg after the president suggested that because of these sort of rulings and lawless orders that he should be impeached. He said Boasberg should be impeached, and Roberts defended Boasberg, and Roberts was part of that conversation, which is really unethical. So Roberts, I don't know. Look, forget Roberts. He's obviously not going to tell these people to get in line, but I don't know what it's going to take to get the House GOP to start impeachment proceedings against some of these judges. I mean, boy, the Democrats have already said if they take power in the House, they're going to impeach President Trump. Why not just do it? I know it won't pass in the Senate. I know it won't go anywhere, but who cares? Do it. Send a message. Send a message to these lawless judges.
Yeah. Well, again, if they, it won't go anywhere in the Senate, ask yourself this question that you always need to be asking yourself. What would Nancy do? What would Nancy? Right. And you know what she would do.
Yep.
It is 6:53.